Good, Shamim.
Very good evening to you all, our listeners. This evening on this Twitter space, we are speaking to General Mugisha Muntu, and we're speaking to him on a range of different issues. Certainly not one to introduce, but he will introduce himself and greet you. And also, that's where we shall start. I know many of you are listening in from wherever you are, but we thank you for being part of this Twitter space. But also, we shall start just right on time, right now, and say a very good evening to you, General Mugisha Muntu. Say hello to the people, and we do start with the business.
Good evening, Shamim. Good evening, dear listeners. I'd like to thank you, Shamim, for hosting me this Friday. I'd also like to apologize to those who've been following this program that last month we were not able to have one because we were up country in areas where the networks were very unstable. So I'm glad that we were able to interact this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, General, for speaking to us. And that's where we actually want to begin. We know you have been moving in the different parts of the country, and that has been in the different practices as Alliance for National Transformation in expression of your members, but also trying to make Ugandans understand what the calls for Alliance for National Transformation is. So what is for values as ANT, that's the nation, and that was just on the State of the Nation address, which was held yesterday. From where you have been moving and observing different things, I want to understand from you what actually the actual state of the nation is. Did the president speak to the things that you met as you traversed the country?
Yeah, in mid-April until about a week back, we traversed different sub-regions. In early April, when in the west, we did Bunyangabu in the Taurus sub-region, and we did Hoima in the Bunyoro sub-region. And then from there, we went to West Nile, where we went to Zombo district and Madiokoro district, and then Arua City. And then from there, we went to Acholi sub-region, where we went to Amuru district. And after that, Gulu City. And then from there, in the mid-May, towards the end of May, we went to the city. And from there, we did Tororo district. And that's where we closed this tour, and we now take the rest and then we go to sub-region and then rotate again throughout the whole country. District by district, we operate at the sub-county level. Normally when we go to sub-county, we work with our coordinators who invite those who are interested in listening to us. We normally meet groups about 150, 200, 300, at times with 350 about. I will talk to them, they ask questions, and those who are convinced about the party, who are convinced about our objectives, and value systems, what we stand for, opt to join the party. And it is from those that we get people who coordinate the parishes and the villages. Once we complete this country, this tour all over the country, then we will hold elections of those who will be coordinators of the village, then the party, then sub-county, then district, up to national level. At that time, we'll be sure that we will lay the foundation for the party. And then the second program that we are focusing on is regular and continuous training of the leaders. So that we don't just want to have leaders, but we also have them well trained in leadership skills in the values and principles and objectives of the party, and also in entrepreneurship skills. Most of those are the three areas that we would be training them in. So they are well prepared that in the event when the party takes power, that leaders at all levels are prepared to confront the tasks that we are faced with as a country and be able to overcome them.
Amongst those that you met, but also the different individuals that you have been working with and the view of the people, the things you have been seeing, observations, the state of infrastructure, the state of healthcare, and the different things where you have been moving. The president addressed the nation yesterday, and that is his mandate as per the constitution. Do you think he addressed the different things that you have been seeing as you traverse the country, the different worries of Ugandans, those that you have met across as you were doing the exercises of the Alliance for National Transformation?
The challenges across the country are almost the same. Most of the places we go to, we normally ask about the health services and the educational services. And it is one of the areas where you find that the services in the educational sector are quite low, because the UP really is not up to standard. Clearly, it's one of the most challenging areas in terms of our development process, because there are now two parallel systems. One, those who can afford to go to private schools, those will get quality education at the primary level, secondary level, HSC, and university. And there are parents who can manage to pay for their children through the private school systems. And they get relatively high levels or high standards of education. There are a number of private schools which are quite good. Now, the unfortunate thing is that many of the parents really cannot afford to pay for their children in private schools. So most of them go to UP. Those who survive UP go to USC. And those who leave that, most of them will stop more or less at that point. And even those who manage to go up to university, you find that the best of the education is quite weak, and therefore, at the end of the day, when you find that those who have gone through the free education and those who have gone through paid for education, those who can afford, at the end of the day, when they go for they're exposed in the workplace, the tendency, except those who are very bright, to go through free education. Otherwise, competition is not level, in a sense that those who go through private education have really got a sound base, right from kindergarten country, because at the point when another party takes power, that party will have to look at how they can carry out programs, even for those I suspect who have finished school, to bring them up the level where they can compete. Those who have gone through the private educational institutions, you just clearly see it. I would like to imagine that those who go or conduct interviews for these students will be able to tell the difference, the wide gap. It's unfortunate, the system doesn't seem to be attending to that particular challenge, but that's the case. Now, in health, everyone will go, of course, we've got the sub-county, and you'll find that the sub-county where they don't have any medical facilities. Health Center 2, Health Center 3, even those that have got Health Center 3, they don't have drugs. We consistently ask one question: how long do drugs take when they are supplied in the Health Center? And I have not had anywhere where we have been, and they tell us that the drugs last for more than 2, 3, 4 days. So it's seen from all over the country. Less than weeks, the drugs which have been supplied are over. So again, the population simply is on its own. If you don't have money, you are not likely to get into the government health center in the first 2-3 days when the drugs are there. Then you are going to go to the private clinic. If you can't pay, then that you have to borrow. That's you find so many people in the villages are so heavily indebted to these circles because they go there to borrow for food, they go there to borrow for treatment of sick people in private clinics or hospitals. It's a tough thing. And then, of course, you go to areas of agriculture because 70% of the rural areas, the rural areas, 70% of the people are farmers. Even in areas where they still have land, like in the north, because in the southern belt, right from Busia across the whole of Uganda to Ankole to Chigezi, most of the people have about 1, 2, 3, 4 acres averagely. But when you go to the north and northeast, you find at least families still could have about, some have 15 acres, there are those who have 25 acres. The challenge though is that when you use human labor, you can dig and put under crop about 3 acres. And someone has got about 20 acres, can only manage to utilize 3 acres. They don't have animal traction or these oxen yet with plows in most of the parts. There's parts where they already have that. Then tractors. Because if they were higher purchase, higher tractor higher scheme, like Gomboras like they used to be, or like they are in a number of countries which are focused on this place, then you'd find that someone would put under crop for the 20 acres. The challenge though is that you find in those areas where they still have land. Plowing is about 100,000 per acre. Second price 100,000. So if you're going to put 20 acres under a crop, it means you need 4 million. They don't have that kind of money. And they have nowhere to borrow since we don't have an agricultural bank. So there is the areas where people should not be poor. So then anybody who do 20, 30 acres should not be poor at all. If there were support services from the Ministry of Agriculture, like tractor hire schemes, like extension services, which are non-existent. That's another problem. Then joblessness. Many youth who don't have jobs. Then corruption. Everywhere we go, out of 147 districts, I have not had even up to 10 districts where people will tell you that they can go and get jobs without bribing. And the majority of the districts who have been, they tell you that you can't get a job unless you bribe. So corruption also has a problem. They say the same things about courts. They say the same things about when you go for politics. You are taking a case for investigation. Basically, the situation is grim. When you hear the rhetoric of the regime, they seem to be saying that they can attend those issues. However, they don't have the discipline, and they also lack the focus. So I have no hope that this regime can turn around this situation. They can say whatever they want to say. They have said it for so many years. But when it comes to the point of implementation, they simply lack the discipline and the focus.
Thank you, General. I understand from that point where you speak, but also just to take you back a little, every other
of course, also
is expected to have. Yes. Please go ahead on the question of the crime.
We'll talk about security. Many parts of the country, because of, and it is linked to joblessness, because there are many youth who are not employed, and they have to eat and they have to survive. So the tendency is that there are people have basically slid into a culture of lawlessness. Stealing is so rampant. We've been to almost 10 districts where you find the same issue of people staying with animals in their houses. People have got pigs, they have got goats, they have got cows. And initially kept on asking, why are you staying with these animals in the houses? It's an evidence. They tell you there is no way you can have an animal staying outside and it's not stolen. It's uniform almost all over the country. What is surprising is even the methods which are being used. I had never ever even imagined that you can fit a cow in a saloon car. But that's what they're doing. You can fit a cow in a saloon car. In many parts of the country, it is a method that is being used. So you can see the levels of desperation. And of course, which I think makes people who are trying to survive even invent methods which nobody could have thought were even possible. I mean, it is normal now in many parts of the country. We found it in the east, we found it in the central, we found it in the west, and also in the north. So the levels of crime are going to increase without doubt, with the levels of joblessness, and of course an increasing population, when the main issue of poverty is not being tackled by the regime. And therefore, we are not surprised that the majority of the people we meet want change. The only challenge is that they need confidence, and that's why all of us want change must keep on engaging with them and building hope in them and building confidence in them. Otherwise, you clearly recognize that most people have lost hope in this regime, but they are looking for a credible alternative.
General, you speak about a number of
yes, Shamim.
And in the president's address yesterday, some of those were never addressed. For those that you could have had, because you speak about the unemployment, which was not party to the address of the president, you talk about the crime rate, which has been evident in Kampala metropolitan areas from Wakiso to Mukono and the other parts of the Kampala metropolitan, quite pertinent but never addressed. Then it brings the question of whether actually a State of the Nation address addresses what the actual state of the nation is, because we know that the pertinent issues that what Ugandans would want to hear about, the questions of committing them to items like the public debt, which will now count about 97 trillion, questions of the issues of corruption, what the action point or when the action point will be for government, or whether they're actually waiting for handcuffs to be given to them for them to be able to act. What's your perspective of those issues as we stand today? If anybody had to ask, or if myself I had to ask you what the state of the nation is in regards to issues to do with the debt, public debt that we are grappling with as a country, but also the corruption rate in the country. We know that public institutions are now in the public eye, which we shall be discussing certainly at a later stage. What would you tell Ugandans the state looks like as of today?
I don't think that is going to be in a turnaround. For quite a long time, I never really bothered to follow what the regime is saying, because I look at the for any government to turn around a situation, you must read discipline and focus in them, and this regime lacks both things. So whatever they say that they intend to do, they won't be able to do. If you find the levels of corruption as deep as they are, and considering the source of it, because it's only logical that if a leader wants to hang on to power, and the tools that he or she will use, like in the particular case of General Museveni and here in Uganda, the tools that he uses, one is the state security apparatus. Two, corruption is a tool, it's deliberate. Because he knows that as long as many people, those who can access wealth through corruption, do not shake his power base, and they know it, those who are corrupt are actually his allies. Whether they are working with him politically or not, they want him to hang around because they know that he's not going to touch them. He also knows that. He knows that as long as he does not touch them, they are not going to rock his political base. So it is a dilemma. Even if he wanted to implement the programs as he talks about, there is nobody who can deploy resources of the country to the area that they are budgeted for unless he changed his mind and decided to let go of power. If that happened, then he could afford to purge the whole system. But he wants someone to power from all the signals that I do read, and I suppose many people do read. But there's no way going to solve the issue of corruption. And if you don't solve the issue of corruption, how will you deliver services? Because in the civil service, in the public service, most people are following the queue. They know that as long as they steal and they do not rock the boat, they'll just continue moving ahead and enriching themselves. So once that mentality is in place or is part of the culture as we see, there can't be efficiency or even an effectiveness in delivery of services by the public service. Anybody now, once the budget starts getting rolled out, I think in October, most of the public servants who have not access to resources will be planning in how to siphon those resources to their own use. That's what has been happening for so many years that we've gone through. And all the agencies that ordinarily would be the ones that would detect, investigate, arrest, cause prosecution, and then the courts trying, and if they found guilty, sentencing. That one doesn't happen, except for people maybe who steal about 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, those small men and women who are down there. But the big fish, all of them will go scot-free, as we have seen it happen over and over. So basically what he's talking about is just simply expression of what he wants people to think they are going to do. But in terms of implementation, they don't have the capacity. They simply have no capacity.
Is it just capacity to do the implementation, or it's the question of the political will? Because if we have to take, for instance, the president's declaration yesterday of him saying he has proof, especially proof against parliament, that they are corrupt, that they are cartels. Yes, we are able to hear you. I am asking, General, in the case of the president saying he has proof against those that have been termed to be corrupt, say, for instance, where he says he has proof against the legislature, the third arm of this government, that there is corruption engraved within between them and the Ministry of Finance, who are supposed to be actually handling the consolidated fund, and then those that are appropriating what is within the consolidated fund. But the president then suggests that maybe some of those will need amnesty. Doesn't this speak to what many have said, that the president does not actually have political will, or individuals would rather think that maybe he's equally a captive of a particular system that he has no
He's just playing on people's minds. I mean, he's very crafty in terms of shaping public opinion. He's very, very crafty in regard to that. So just speaking the gallery and making people think that now he has gained the courage.
Kindly request to speak again on Twitter.
Down. If you ask corruption on corruption,
General, we seem to be losing you. We seem to be losing you, General. The network could be disturbing you.
I sent a request.
Request to speak on Twitter.
General, please put on your speaker. You request to speak on the speaker so that we are able to hear you. We are not able to hear you as of now.
I sent a request to Twitter. Can you hear me?
We are not yet hearing you clearly, like you have been. But equally, for those that have particular questions that you would want the general to answer or have a mind about, for you to be able to pick his perspective, you can be able to share those questions just from within that. Yes. Now we can be able to hear you. I hope it can be better sound. Yes. Now at least I'm able to hear you. Let's begin from the point of action that the president says we are able to get you, General.
But the Twitter, they seem not to be getting me yet.
We are able to get
you. You can hear me on Twitter as well.
I can hear you now, but I cannot get you on the spaces. I cannot see
okay, great.
Even on the Twitter spaces yet. I only need you to reconnect on the spaces so that we move.
Yeah. I'm sending a request and it comes, but it looks like
only waiting.
I sent the request again. I wonder whether they have got it.
General, are you now back? I need to hear you on the spaces. I need to see you there. For those that are staying with us here on the spaces, we thank you very much for listening in, but we are welcome to any of the questions that you're able to share. Just in that comment section, you're able to share the questions that you would want him to address. Certainly, that will be at a later time when we are speaking to him. General, are you able now to get to us? I cannot see you yet on the Twitter spaces. You want to address certainly that will be at the later time when we are speaking. General, are you able now?
I can hear you on Twitter. They do hear
me. Come again. You said you can hear me on the spaces.
I could hear you on the spaces.
On the spaces, I don't see you yet.
I don't see myself on. Has not worked yet fully.
Okay, we can wait a little more.
I also don't see myself.
We can wait a little more for you to be able to reconnect, so that we are able to engage the public, which is waiting to hear from you on the different things. And indeed, they have been raising those concerns about the volume and anything else. But yes, We are making everything correct. We're making
let me
to be able
to listen
to this conversation. Not yet on the Twitter Spaces.
Can you hear me on Twitter now? I mean on Space.
No, on the Spaces not yet. I don't see you. I cannot hear you still, but we are waiting for your reconnection here.
Let me leave and let me leave it and reconnect.
Okay. Okay, fine. On the Spaces, I see Ambassador Edith Tempala. Thank you very much for joining the Spaces. I see Dr. Sarah rated there. I see CPA Africa. I see a number of people on the Spaces and listening in, and we appreciate you. We appreciate your time. And also, this is only a sign that you have Uganda at heart, and everything else that happens in the country, you want to pay attention to it and get to understand how actually it evolves. And we thank you for that, and thank you for paying attention to pertinent issues in the country. General, have you been successful yet?
Yeah, I'm not a speaker, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Now I can be able to hear
you. My apologies. There was a technical glitch.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you. We can begin from my last question, which I was posing to you. And I want us to understand your perspective of the president speaking out to say he actually has proof of corruption in parliament and finance. We know that the Ministry of Finance is responsible for all the warrants issued. So it's responsible for the consolidated fund and what comes out of it. It is now in a scandal that the president is only revealing to Ugandans away from what has put parliament itself in spotlight. I want to know from you where you think the pool is for the president, for him not to be able, or even the government not to be able to act against those that they find culpable of corruption, those that they find with it, living with it, but also they're dealing with the public resources in this case. Is it a question of the political will, or we could say that probably somebody is hiding away those handcuffs for the president not to be able to arrest, not to be able to actually act in a simple manner? Because we know, as of today, you have 3 ministers being tried in the courts of law. What is special about individuals that could be involved in grave kind of corruption?
I don't think it's lack of political will. Maybe yes, but that's peripheral. At the core of the corruption culture that we have in the country, it's conscious, it's deliberate, because it is the basis for hang on to power. Basically, the whole system is designed, as I had already indicated, for people who are able to loot the country to do so, on the very understanding that they don't rock the boat, they don't go for General Museveni's power base. And it basically lets them do that. The only way anybody who wants to clamp down on corruption, considering how deep it is in this country, anybody who would want to wipe out corruption would have to use shock, treatment methods. This particular case, if General Museveni wanted to resurrect himself and his image, he would start with the closest people and not with the executive. Why is he going to parliament when the corruption is all around him in the executive? If he arrested 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ministers, and they are prosecuted, and they tried and they're sentenced and they are put in prison, then that would be a signal for everybody else now to start working as if they are on tentacles, like they are working on eggshells. But as long as there's corruption around him, in the executive that he's in charge of, and he does not tackle those who are corrupt, how will he pretend that he's going to tackle corruption in the parliament or even in the judiciary? Let him tackle the executive and then send a signal to those who head the judiciary and the parliament to tell them, look, there is a fight against corruption, and nobody who crosses the line and is corrupt is going to be above the law. And say in 6 months, 1 year, anybody who is going to be found corrupt is going to be arrested, prosecuted, and imprisoned. In 1, 2 years, you just find everybody who's been having their hands in the government resources, stealing government resources. They all just pull back. But it's deliberate, it's intentional. That's why he is not going to crack down on corruption. Period. There are people who hope because of what he's saying and raising their hopes that he won't. Because as he himself said at some point, he recognized that corruption is so entrenched that if he tackled the corrupt, and for sure, there's no way you can fight corruption and survive. That's simply not possible. So anybody who's expecting General 7 and NRM fight against the corrupt is simply daydreaming. We should just close that chapter and know that those who want to fight corruption have to keep building themselves so that at the time when one of the parties takes power, then that's the only time we know that corruption is going to be, not before that.
General, those are institutions of government, or even the
not only corruption, also the
those are arms of government that we are talking about as of today. But we know that one that has actually the role to check the executive in this case, which is Parliament, has its own troubles as of today. We know that it has been in spotlight, which saw the president speak yesterday and said even those that have gone to expose the corruption or even the acts that could look as ugly as we have seen in Parliament, are individuals who are working for the foreign power or for foreign entities. And we want to understand from you what actually it would mean when you actually cannot have action taken, but also those that are bringing information closer to you or helping you put it even to you or out there at labeled as this. What sort of destruction do you see in that?
You see, those who are in Parliament and even those who are the public service, the civil servants, took a cue from General Museveni's stance on corruption. They watch what the executive does. They know that he doesn't really care about the corrupt. The only time when he will act decisively is when someone is corrupt and when he thinks that that person is no longer supporting him. That's the only time anybody is going to face risk. Even now, these maneuvers which are going on around Parliament, those whom he either feels threatened by or those whom he thinks are no longer so much of value, his power base, those he can go away with to hoodwink the public. But if there are those who are corrupt, and at the same time, he knows that they are part of his pillars in the different areas of the country, he is not going to go against them. Absolutely, I don't believe that.
But what does it imply to have these institutions in that state, but also as Parliament, one that has to be a representation of the people of Uganda, struggling in its own wings, looking at its former self, talk of the Parliament that many have talked about, of the 6th time, talk of the 9th Parliament itself, even if you were to talk about the 8th Parliament. What is it that has gone extremely wrong that everything about this parliament could seem to be going astray?
I mean, there's been a continuous deterioration of all institutions of state, in the judiciary, in the legislature, in the executive. There's been a progressive deterioration for the last 20 plus years. You know, more and more people find it necessary to steal because they know that if you steal and you are not antagonistic to the regime, that you'll survive. And that's why they keep on increasing in numbers wherever they are. I mean, there's no place now where you find a senior person who's basically still intact or honest. Very, very few. Out of 10, you find about 2 or 3. They're still there, surviving quietly, but not many. The majority are simply on the gravy train, whether they are politicians, whether they are civil servants, whether they are business people, all of them on the gravy train, which General 7 is heading. So nobody, basically what I'm trying to say in summary, nobody should have any hopes at all that as long as General 7 still wants to hang on to power, that there is any possibility of effectively prong against the corrupt. That won't happen. So the only thing that is going to solve the problems of corruption in this country is those who are organizing to go into power, to prepare themselves early enough. Because any party which goes into power, whether it is Alliance for National Transformation, whether it is FDC, whether it is NUP, whichever it is, must go in fully prepared with men and women who will act in concert and who themselves are going to be so strong in terms of conviction that they are not going to be overwhelmed by the culture of corruption that there is already. That's the only saving grace for this country. If that does not happen, then you know that all Ugandans, each one would be on their own. But expect that the government is going to fight corruption, like peasants who lose their land. Nobody can get justice in the court. No? Nobody is going to go to police and have their case investigated. So basically, the majority of the people really are in a very, very precarious situation. And I doubt when there can be any internal reform in NRM. Because the few good men and women who are there don't have a critical mass, a critical number of leaders who can, turn around the situation from within their setup, the NRM. That's no longer possible. They are there, but they are on the periphery. They'll be marginalized even if they try to put up a fight. So the only hope is organizing outside. So even as we know what the regime is saying, we need to specifically concentrate on building the necessary vehicle that will be able to effectively fight against all these problems. You know, I think we are spending a lot of time fighting peripheral battles, like these battles in parliament. Nothing is going to come out of that parliament. Nothing is going to come out of that executive.
But General, these are institutions that are still running government for Uganda, if they are. But what would know for sure that they are the institutions that are still in power. But also, you have these institutions, some of them with leaders who are already sanctioned. You have Parliament of Uganda with a sanctioned speaker who is supposed to preside over loans that have to be passed, grants that have to be passed. We know that we are already dealing with the challenge of budget financing, which is now quite huge and known to many Ugandans that coming in of receiving funds or getting funds from the different actors for government, even internationally, has become a challenge. But also, you know that even members of the executive are equally sanctioned. But if we are to focus on Parliament, what, in your opinion, does it present to Ugandans, one that does not understand what actually sanctions would mean to them as a Ugandan for a leader of the Parliament of Uganda to be sanctioned over cases, corruption, cases of mismanagement?
You mean the sanctions from foreign countries, like in this case?
Yes,
is it UK?
Yes, I mean the sanctions from foreign countries. Talk of UK, but also talk of the letters which are coming in from the United States of America.
I don't think General 7 cares about people who are being sanctioned who are in government. For example, this is my own opinion. Right or wrong, that's what I believe. There is no way, for example, the Speaker of Parliament is going to be run out of that Parliament even if she was sanctioned by 100 other countries, unless General Museveni either feels threatened by her or he feels that internally it is going to affect his politics. But as long as he has a feeling that she would be supportive of his hang on to power, and if she has still any role she can play in him hanging around, he will stick by her. He won't care about corruption or anything else. I mean, I've seen so many things. This is not the first time. It's not only the speaker. All these people who hold government offices, as long as he feels that they are of value to his hang around, he will stick by them. It doesn't matter who says what. But the day any of them does something that is either threatening his power base, or if he feels that they are not of any value to his power base, they are gone. That's the premise. The premise is his power base. The premise is not whether someone is corrupt or not corrupt, whether one has been sanctioned by whichever country. That's not the basis that would lead to his action, to go against any of those officials. So anybody who thinks that General Museveni is going to move against anybody holding office because they are corrupt is really daydreaming. If they are corrupt, but they are supportive of his power base, and he thinks they are of value in that regard, he will stand by them, boldly, openly, regardless of whatever anybody says.
General, even when the president stands with them, there is likeliness of having an effect to Ugandans, especially in terms of the things that I mentioned earlier, talk of how they'll have to preside over loans. We know that some of the sanctions come with an impact. When, say for instance, the Magnitsky, the sanctions, those Magnitsky sanctions, especially which are in relation to corruption, several of those have an impact for one to transact. As Uganda presides over with the speaker who is sanctioned, as they preside over these loans, are they ones that are going to attract, take for instance, fines for us to get when you receive money and it's already charged, or even having fines on it and different issues that would work with it. Even the budget support itself, we know that it has changed or even reduced extremely over time. What do you see in that?
If sanctions are linked to funding, yes, he'll act, because he knows that if the sanctions or anybody who's holding a public office, whether it is a speaker or a minister or whatever other authority they may be holding, if it affects funding, for example, that the government is trying to borrow and they make it a condition, or there's a grant which is being threatened, if he does not sack such a person, he will act in that regard, because that directly threatens his own programs that he would want to implement for him to hang around. But if the sanctions are only on things like travel, he won't care. I mean, there are sanctions which are about people not traveling in some countries. He wouldn't care even for one single day about that. But if it touches funding, yes, he will act. So we'll wait and see how this whole thing unfolds. We'll keep watching. I'm not someone who's excited about what is happening in Parliament.
Accountable. Because we know they must be. My question is, General, if Parliament has a speaker who is sanctioned that much, twice, if not two countries in this case, and then you have cases of corruption in the House, which the president says he has proven to this point, does it give her chance to even be able to hold the executive accountable on anything they're working, because the outlook of it then for many has made the speaker a little vulnerable in this case?
Yeah, but even before the corruption cases came up in Parliament, the current ones that they're investigating, Parliament wasn't really putting the executive to account, basically. I mean, if they were able to hold the regime to account, we wouldn't be seeing the corruption cases that we have seen. I mean, look at, it's only that we Ugandans seem to forget so fast. Look about when the Ruboa hospital issues, where they spent, I think, about 375 million United States dollars. A committee of parliament went to investigate, and it was stopped from entering that premise. Not once, not twice, I think about 3 times. And I think even at some point the minister tried to gain access, to enable the committee gain access. And even the minister could not succeed. Would anybody want to tell me that something like that can happen unless the presidency is involved? There is nobody who can give an order that a committee of parliament is refused entry to a public facility like that, which is under investigation, unless it comes direct from State House. That's one. Many other scandals which have been happening, the scandals of the airlines, the airship scandals. That time, the parliamentary issues hadn't even come up. The internal corruption cases of parliament hadn't even come under scrutiny. So if parliament was not holding the executive to account in regard to all those, and there's a litany of so many cases for the last 20 or so years, why would they think that now it's going to be any different? That's why the whole system requires an overhaul.
Thank you very much, Jen, your perspective on Parliament. But there are a range of issues that I want to draw to your attention. It's just a few days away from now, away from even the State of the Nation, which was read or presented yesterday. Just in days, we shall be seeing a budget reading, which speaks to 72.13 trillion shillings in the next financial year budget, moving away from what we had previously, which was 52, then the subsequent talking about 58 in the budget framework paper, and then 60 in the budget framework paper, and then later overnight we jumped with the 14 trillion to 72.13 trillion budget. I want to understand.
Yes.
What's your perspective of what would be most prominent for us to deal with in this case? Were you able to get me, General?
Okay, I can hear you. Okay. Precisely, the point is, within a very short period of time, the budget which was estimated around 58 trillion, and there's an addition about 20 trillion, 72 trillion. That's Parliament. That's the Parliament we're talking about. The Parliament which cannot stand its ground. And you look at the breakdown of allocations and ensure that, for example, the budget to agriculture is raised. I think it should not be around 4%. The Maputo Declaration we signed required all African countries to have built up their allocations to the agricultural sector to about, I think, about 10%. Some countries have even overshot that. We are at 4%. The majority of the Ugandan people, 70% are peasants. And then you find members of parliament who are absolutely incapable of looking at the allocations to health. And then on the other side, you find the presidency and State House giving the largest share, percentage terms, of the budget allocation. Most of that money is again about regime survival. again, the issue of parliament, we as Ugandans, I know we speak a lot, we complain a lot, but sometimes this is interesting. Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Hello? I seem to have lost contact.
We get you, we hear you. We are getting you as you speak.
Well, you can hear me?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay. Every budget year, at the beginning, the reading of the budget, for the last 20 years or so, the same arguments, if one was to look backwards and compare the arguments which are raised, increasing debt, misallocation of resources in terms of the priority areas. Hello?
Yes, yes,
Hello?
we're able to get you.
Hello?
We are able to get you, Jim.
The arguments are similar. Can you hear me on Twitter?
Yes, yes. Oh, on Twitter? Not yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, yes. We're able to get you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. If anybody is to sit down and make analysis of the last 5 to 10 years and look at the time when the budgeting process until the time when it is passed by Parliament, and you compare all the issues which are raised, all the complaints which are raised, all the arguments that are made, you almost think that you're talking about the same budget. Same. What I think we really need to do, because again, in my own estimation, the same cycle in this whole year, debt is going to increase, corruption is going to deepen, misallocation of resources will continue, and that won't end, it will continue worsening until there is a resolution of the problem. What is it? So that we can see an end to it in the next 1.5 years, which will be 2026. Wipe out that parliament. At least people can monitor and know those who are holding the government account and those who are not, you wipe them out. Wipe out NRM and Genome 7 from being in government. Then simultaneously, those of us, the parties in the opposition that are working takeover, would need to be reading the situation, the gravity of it as it is, because now we keep talking about debt. When you distribute the national debt to every individual head, this time everybody is carrying a debt of about 3 million shillings, including the 1-year child. So anybody therefore who is going to be prepared to get into power would need to be reading all this and prepare on how to overcome those challenges that we're going to be meeting. Because you don't see focus on terms of budget, agriculture, to pull up the people. Seven keeps talking about eradicating poverty. But you go on the ground, look at agriculture, look at the budget agriculture. He keeps talking about fighting corruption. Look at the agencies that fight corruption. Look at CID. Look at the Inspector General of Government. Because for you to know the seriousness of any government, you look at the funding. What is the budget put to a particular institution? Then you know that, okay, now they are targeting this, they are going to resolve. So I have no, I don't think that there's going to be any difference in terms of budget performance this year as it as it was last year and the year before and the last 5-10 years, same thing. Only problem is that we are going to keep on carrying more and more debt because they're going to keep borrowing more and more money. And it all goes down the drain.
Thank you very much, General, for sharing with us that, and it was very important that we address the question of the question of what the budget looks like, even when it looks like it will present a lot more for Ugandans. The bigger chunk of that will have to go to the public debt, and also will have to go to addressing the salaries of the public servants in Uganda. And even when we know very much that the Ministry of Finance conducted an audit on the staff of government, if you like to call them, or government workers, several employees were discovered in that particular audit being non-existent. But also we know that some institutions of recent have, I don't know how best we would term it, but they have a little more number that would be expected to have in their operations. And I want to pick your perspective of that, General, that you have an increasing burden on the cost of public administration, but government continuously recruits, and even in the recruitment of some of the government entities, there are queries of how individuals are either sneaked into the public service, but also how others find their way within receiving government funds, but never part and parcel of the actual processes of recruitment of government.
Again, the lack of functioning system. Everybody does whatever they want to do. Anybody who goes into an office where they have got power and authority will just employ the people who they want to employ. Two, the expansion of public expenditure. I mean, I think about a month ago or 2 months ago, they employed about 300 something RGCs. On top of Parliament, on top of the something minister, the Parliament itself. It would be at a time like this when we have got terms of this number of parliament, this numbers in other like the other decisions are being increased, already too many in the first place. But again, we are going towards an election, so expect more and more people to be brought in or sneaked in, as you have said. We were talking about rationalizing the authorities. You know, and to see how, for example, the UNRWA, but authorities like UNRWA and others which replicate what ministries are supposed to do.
It's about 38 entities.
Yes, 38 entities. I don't think that is going to be implemented, because to implement something like that again requires discipline, which they lack on one side, but also too, it is deliberate, because all those people who are there, if you track down, you find like during election, they are all using money from all those, there are very few who are disciplined, whom you never hear that they have channeled resources, but most of the channel resources to support General 7 and NRA, and they know that even if they steal, even if they channel resources, of course, when they channel resources to campaigns of the regime, supporting the regime, maybe 50% get there or 40%, the rest they take. And after elections, nobody is going to run after them because they would have supported the regime. So can anybody expect that rationalizing the restructuring can even be effective? It won't. I really hope that all of us can reach a conclusion that nothing good is going to happen in this country as long as General 70 is trying to hang on to power, and NRM, the support vehicle, was hang on to power. Until we eliminate them, don't expect any turnaround. Don't expect any discipline. Don't expect restructuring to happen. How can you have a parliament of 529 members of parliament? And I hear within on the grapevine that they intend to increase the number of MPs. Because some of the big shots want their constituencies to be demarcated so that they can remain in areas where they are more sure. General 7 is trying to get favor in some areas. From what I hear, they're going to increase members of parliament. 529 already. As large as the parliament of India, which is 600, the lower and upper house. India has got 1.2 billion people. We have 45 million people. It's just insanity. But we seem not to make that conclusion. And until that conclusion is made, and therefore we effectively oust this regime, we'll keep going through these arguments over and over, even another budget cycle, year after year.
Thank you very much, General. I see the Director for Communication of the NRM, Honorable Dombo, has been listening into this conversation. We hope he can be able to return and also receive a question from him if he has any that he would want to present to us. But also, General, it's a time that is short of several events. You have just 1 year for preparations of the general elections, and we know for sure that activity for some of the entities or some of the political parties has already begun. We know that Alliance for National Transformation has been moving out, but also some of you have intimated that the role of the new RCCs, assistants of a kind, and the new RDCs, those assistants of the assistants, some of them as have been termed, are to play a political role. But first, I want to understand from you as Alliance for National Transformation, how are you preparing yourselves? You cite a number of challenges which are heavy for the government of President Museveni to be able to solve. How are you able to prepare yourselves if you are to take power in the next election that is just a year away from us?
Our message basically is our belief is that the solution, the challenges we are facing, is not just simply hinged to just removal of General 70 and NRM. The only solution to the problems we are facing is to have a different team of people who will be operating from a different mindset. And those people have to be brought together now. Whether they are in a ship, jump ship, those who are not involved in parties can also get together. That's what we're trying to do as Alliance for National Transformation. But because even we are as Alliance for National Transformation, even if tomorrow we got into power, if we operate from the same mindset, we just do the same things like General 7 is doing. So the question I normally would like to understand and I normally ask people is, I know that there are more honest Ugandans, more honest men and women in this country than the dishonest. But why on earth would they expect that things can be any different unless they get directly involved in politics, choose one party to go into, become a critical number, because that's where the problem has always been. There have always been honest people. Even now, there are some honest men and women still who are in NRM, hiding, of course, because if they raise their heads, they'll be, eliminated or thrown out. Eliminated, I mean, politically, not, physically. So once you get a number of men and women who say, you know what, the issue is about the culture, which is entrenched. That many people who are in politics look at politics as a place where you go for an opportunity for self-aggrandizement. It's not about service to the people. And yet there are many people who really want, if they got that opportunity, who want to serve the people. And that is so simple to understand, at least in my own estimation when I look at it. So what I wonder about is, why are the Ugandans who are honest? Why don't they congregate in one party? They choose a party. They can go to NUP, they can go to any party they choose. They can come to NT. Those of us who are there, that's what we keep encouraging. Those are the people who are trying to attract. If they look at the opposition parties and they find that there's none which suits their desires, then they form a party. But the most important thing is that they become the dominant force. Because there's no party which will the culture that is now entrenched, unless the honest men and women who want to serve the population, who care about people, who care about the country, become the majority. That is not going to happen. Even any of us who are in the opposition, any party in the opposition that takes power, when it has not built on that formula, you can just repeat the same thing General Seven and the people hang around him are doing. Because the problem is the mindset from which they operate. They look at power as a source of, looting. They're on a gravy train, basically. They're on a gravy train. So if any group, including us, if we went to power with the same mindset, we would also be driving a gravy train and everybody would be trying to jump onto it and wouldn't care about throwing them off. Because if they were supporting what we are doing, we would be wanting to entrench ourselves and therefore necessarily would have to encourage corruption. And the people who are corrupt would support us and the people who shout would suppress them. So why should people, not understand that? It's the simplest thing to understand, but I can't understand why people are not able to decipher that. So when we go around the country, it's simply we are seeking for men and women of that nature, that we recruit them into the party, that they are a dominant group at those levels, at the parish level, at the sub-county level, at the district level, national level. And then a party like the opposition party, normally you find that they have about 1,500 those who are the decision makers, the delegates conference. Any party which has got 1,000 men and women, just that, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 men and women who can be fielded in key positions, who are honest, can turn around this country. It doesn't take hundreds of thousands of people to change the country. Actually, it takes just a few hundred. But the formula must be that in the party, they must influence. But if those whose tendency is to be corrupt are the ones who are really influencing that organization, nothing will change. Faces will change, yes. But terms of service delivered, nothing. So we keep building on that. And the only challenge we are facing is resources to move all over the country. We'll keep operating within our means until we reach wherever we will have reached by the time of elections. I know we're much better off now than we were last time. Last time we just went out. We hadn't even gone anywhere to build. We hadn't even communicated our message. Now, wherever we go, our message resonates with people. What out to work on their fears. They are still fearful. People operate from a herd mentality. Human beings like zebras or antelopes or sheep, they are animals which operate in herds. So people operate outside numbers. If someone sees 1,000 people in one place and 10 in another, it doesn't matter whether the 10 are the ones who are right. Most times they want to go in their 1,000 because that's where the numbers are. It's the human tendency. So you have to keep working until you keep drawing more and more until there's a balance of forces where you draw the 10. The 10 keep increasing and the 1,000 keep reducing. Now, once you reach that area where they are seem to be almost the same, you get more people who will join it because they believe what you are doing. Right now, there's that kind of fear which you have to keep working on over and over. And we are glad because we see many people coming into the party. Many, I'm not talking about 100,000 because that's not even on target now. What we are targeting now are the few. Because at a village, at a parish, at a county, at a district, we need 23 men and women. So if you get 18, 19 men and women who are firm, who are bold, who are honest, who care for the areas they come from, who care about people, who care about the country, once a party like that takes power, it will radically transform the culture in this country. That's what we are driving on. Once we get those, then we go to the second phase where we'll start branding the party, popularizing it. And that's where many people have got misunderstanding. They look for numbers. We're not looking for numbers now. We're looking for the backbone. You see an elephant, I don't know how many kilograms it weighs, maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000, maybe whatever it is. If it didn't have a skeleton, that flesh of the elephant will just be on the ground. But it stands, it's a strong animal because it has a skeleton. So that huge amount of flesh stands because it is around infrastructure, in this case, the bones, the skeleton. I see people, that's maybe an argument for another day. But that's our focus. Now we're looking for men and women who can get into the party. 23 at every level. Train them. And then it becomes an efficient machine. So when we build the number through the second phase, there are a number of things we will do. And we will change the narrative in this country. I know for sure once we go into the second phase. But when you build the numbers, but you don't have the skeleton, or like when you're building the house, you must have a foundation. Then you have the infrastructure, the frame of the building, the pillars, and then you start filling up and do the finishing. But you want to start from the roof. We're not going to do things ourselves. We're doing it slowly but systematically, brick by brick. And by the time we get to 2026, we will be ready. My God's grace.
That's your submission.
Yes,
and probably you might be ready, but in the opposition, we see most of what individuals have termed as self-destruction, but also the space for you to be able to do the activities in the way you would want to engage the public has seemed oftentimes, even the reports, one of those from EU indicates the decrease, extreme deterioration of civic space in Uganda. And one would wonder if within you there's self-destruction from within the parties in the opposition with what has continued to happen in FDC, what has continuously now become part of NUP. What will you need to work like, or how, or what sort of mechanisms will you need to employ as parties that are seeking power for you to be able to work in a more steadfast manner that can be able to support you in acquisition or getting the trust of the people, or getting to the power and work on behalf of the people?
For those of us who don't have adequate resources yet, we continuously keep trying to raise the resources, because training is very, very important. So when we talk to colleagues like Noop, who are going through, I hope, what would be a temporary turbulence inside the party, for them, they have resources. Every time I meet some of the leaders, I keep telling them about training, because the leaders must be prepared, must be trained. And one of the areas of training, of course, besides the leadership skills, also like in conflict management. Because all of us who are in the opposition, who are intending to take power, must be well prepared. Because if one, right now we're all operating in a very hostile environment. The regime targets to destabilize all parties. That's a given. I keep telling all colleagues who are in the opposition that you'll be targeted. And don't hope that there's going to be a time when they won't try to destabilize you. You need to know that, but you also need to build the necessary skills within the organization to neutralize whoever is trying to destabilize you. Because that's a skill that you don't need only now, you also need it when you're in power. Because when you're in power, you're going to be facing all nature of issues. I mean, don't think that every country in the world will like you when you're in power. There are those who may want to destabilize you for whatever reason. So if you don't have the skills and you need to build them early enough, and you're in power, you're going to get a problem. Two, how you manage internal contradictions. I keep also...
I seem not to be getting you on the Twitter Spaces. I seem not to be getting you clearly on the Twitter Spaces. Please activate your mic on the Spaces.
I'm sending a request because I sent a request.
Okay, fine.
I was saying.
Yes, there we
every time I get an opportunity to meet with other leaders in the opposition, I keep telling them that, you know what, we need to focus a lot on training of leaders. Because training of leaders is very, very important. One, leadership skills. Also, like conflict detection, conflict management, conflict resolution skills. We operate in a very hostile environment. The regime concentrates on destabilizing all opposition parties. destabilize cultural institutions, destabilize religious institutions. Because John Museveni wants to create, a sense within the public that he's the only stabilizing factor. Everything else is unstable. He's the only one who can be a fulcrum around which the country can revolve. And largely, many people buy into that. So we who are in the opposition need to work day and night, train leaders, so that there are leaders who can neutralize the attempts of the regime to destabilize whatever party you are in, because destabilization attempts will continue. There is no day when this regime is not going to try to destabilize the opposition parties. So we should not expect that the regime will be sympathetic with us, or that at any day we want to do a Senate level. Absolutely not. You must have the skill to detect who is trying to infiltrate you, and then you neutralize that effort to create and maintain stability in the party. But also to ensure that when you are in power, you need those skills. Because the world we are operating in, is also quite challenging. Don't think that everybody, mostly if you are strict and you are using your resources in the interest of the country. There are people who may not like that. If they don't like that and they move against you to destabilize, if you don't have those skills, what will you do? Also about managing internal contradictions when you are in power. Because when you are in power, you're going to have people at the domestic level who are going to be abusing you. There are people who are going to confront you. There are people who are going to oppose you. Some without even any sound cause.
I seem to have lost you, but I want to understand from you, as Alliance for National Transformation, are you already employing such safeguards? Because we know you might equally not be immune to infiltration or even any sort of aggression that would come from those that want to stay in power, because every other state wants to stay in power. We know that.
Communication or engagement. We need to know that any party now which is in opposition, potentially it can be in power. So you need to ask yourself, when you're in power, you need to have prepared yourself in how to manage internal contradictions. Two, you need to know how to respond, even when there are situations where people can oppose you. and not many people are civil. There are those who will oppose you in a manner which naturally or ordinarily can irritate you. So if you have not learned, or built a culture within the organization of patience, of restraint. Come again?
Activate again on Twitter.
I've sent a request to Spaces.
To the Twitter Spaces.
Yeah, I'm there. But I've sent a request. I've not seen I'm still seeing myself as a listener, not as a speaker.
Are you there?
I am here.
To the Twitter Spaces.
But on X Spaces, I am a listener, not a speaker. So something needs to be activated from the comms people.
There is an invite to speak. There's an invite to speak, so you can accept it or you can send your invite, your request.
I've not seen it yet. Your invite, I haven't seen it yet. But I've sent you a request.
Okay, we on the Spaces, we have lost the general, but he is.
I'm now a speaker.
Yes.
I've been connected.
Now he's able to be here. Yes, General, you were still submitting on how you as Alliance for National Transformation are able to deal with the infiltration if at any time it does get to happen.
We concentrate on training of skills. And that's why we will be working on training all leaders right from parish, sub-county, district, and national level. But the most critical now are those who operate at the national level. Once you do training and leaders understand that you are a party, you are in the opposition, but our focus needs to know that there's a time when we are going to be in power. And therefore, you have to understand when you are in power, how will you manage internal contradiction? I mean, there are times when you'll be confronted by situations internally at the domestic level, externally by those who may not like the regime that you are in. You have to learn how to manage that. Because if you don't build a culture of people, leaders know that you need to be patient, that we need to restrain ourselves in terms of how we respond to issues, even when at times they can be irritating, but that you don't respond by force. Because when you are in power, now we don't have national security apparatus under our command. But when any party is in power, the army is under you, the police is under you, intelligence service is under you. If you have not built those skills, anybody who challenges you, you can easily fall the temptation of telling the intelligence service or police to go sort out those people, and they sort them out. So that's what happens all the time. So that training, therefore, is very, very critical in as far as we are concerned. And that's why we hope that we can get people who already have the experience, but also we train those who don't have the experience, those who have never acted in government, and also train them in statecraft.
Network is disturbing you. You are breaking. We are not able to get you on the spaces.
Potentially in power. Yep, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can get you. Now you're clear.
Because it would be the most disastrous thing when you're in power and you just simply don't know how to manage power.
And the spaces,
they want you to provide this, and there are people who even oppose it for the sake of opposing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we see you on the spaces, and it seems the network is disturbing you a little bit, but we are seeing you reconnecting.
Okay. So basically, every time you are an opposition party, you must be picturing yourself in power. And if people confront you, how are you going to deal with it?
Okay, activate.
Are you going to
activate
suppress
on Twitter? We see you. General, activate your microphone on Twitter.
Mic
so that
is,
we are able to hear.
I have. You can hear me now?
Not.
Sorry, there's been a lot of technical glitches. Basically, what I'm saying, any party in opposition must be preparing itself 24/7 in how to manage power the moment it is in power. So when there are any internal contradictions in a party, you need to know that the
General, that submission is missing out. That submission is missing out on Twitter. We are not yet having you as a speaker again. Please make the request.
I basically don't know why it's on and off.
It can be it can be issues of network.
Can you hear me now?
On X, not yet. You are still reflecting as only a listener, and yet we want to pick that submission on how you are employing the safeguards. Activate the volume, activate the mic.
It is on my side.
Okay, then I think I need to understand from the technicals.
There is an invitation for him to speak, but he can also make a request. Maybe
I've
it
not
is
seen the
just slow
invitation
because
yet.
of the network.
Okay, we're having glitches to do with the network, quite a bit technical, but we're still with the general and we're only making that active. General, is it activated now? Are you able to see it? I still see you as a listener.
The mic is on, but I see myself as a listener. I've not seen any activation yet, unfortunately. Unless I leave and reconnect.
Just
Sylvan, what do we do?
Just check for my invitation for you to speak, or first mute the mic and then unmute it again, so that we can see that you are requesting to speak.
Let me first quickly go through the comments that we have here on. Let me first go quickly into the comments we have here on the spaces as the general reconnects to us. And there is a one King of the South, Western Uganda. He's asking, how can I get ANT card? Alliance for National Transformation should be able to communicate about how you can become part of the party or get the card of the party or get membership to the party. And I know that these comments will be picked by the team from Alliance for National Transformation to get to you, King of the South, for you to be able to subscribe to the party. There's several other comments that I want to get to read at the general reconnect here to especially us who are on the Twitter spaces to understand the different few things. But there's several comments which I would want to read. Ngoru Charles says current members of parliament are there for survival, but not for the good of the people. So the only means of fighting corruption is to change regime. Otherwise, our discussions may yield nothing. General Mugisha Muntu, now I am able to hear you. I think you have been able to reconnect. Can we get to hear you from the perspective of those safeguards that you as Alliance for National Transformation are employing in case of infiltration or just in preparation, because cases of a kind are politically happening in the country?
One thing is that we have many leaders in ANT who already have the skills of conflict management and conflict resolution. We have operated in, some of us have operated in government, some of us have been parties. So we have those skills, and we are always, alert 24/7, and their skills will enable you to detect if there's any form of infection, and also will enable you to neutralize anybody that wants to stabilize it from within, or how to block out an attempt from the outside. So I was saying that it's a question of training, and therefore all parties which are in the opposition need to concentrate a lot in that. Considering that we consider ourselves as at some point as government. So any party which is looking at going to government must have those skills early enough. When you're in government, there are going to be so many forces. There may be those from outside who want to stabilize it. You must have trained yourself to have restraint in not even how to deal even with the internal contradictions. There are citizens who may not care about your sensibilities. They will abuse you. The roles kind of nature of things. Some of them deliberately can irritate you. So when you are in power, you need to know that you're going to deal with all nature of people. And therefore, you must build those skills to ensure that one, you have the necessary patience to listen to all people. Two, you must know that there are channels through which there can be resolution of misunderstandings, if there are misunderstandings or contradictions of whatever nature. And the best thing to prepare for that is now. That's why we have continued training. The parties which are lacking out how money, they need to concentrate a lot on that. Those of us who don't have adequate resources will keep looking for the resources and keep doing that in preparation. One, how to forestall any attempt to destabilize us when we are still outside power, and also how to manage any contradictions when we're in power. Yep.
Thank you very much, General Mugisha Muntu, for sharing with us. And at this point, I would want to pick first. There's one that I would want you to answer in regards to how individuals should be able to join the Alliance for National Transformation. On the spaces, someone made a comment and said they would want to join or get the card for Alliance for National Transformation. There's a one King of the South, Western Uganda. He wants to know how he can be able to get a card or belong to Alliance for National Transformation with proper subscription of acquisition of a party card.
I wonder whether they have put there their number. If they have put there their number, we can connect with them right away and give them details on how to get to our offices. But we have an office at Dr. Kiremerwa Road in Bukoto, but we also have an online registration process, which unfortunately got some technical glitches. We're working on it. My hope is that in the next month or so, we'll be back online in regard to online registration. That will be also the easiest for many people. We will not go to resources yet to open district offices, but we intend to do so soon. Open district offices and also at the division levels in the whole of Kampala. That will be another channel for which people will be able to access.
General Mugisha Muntu, as we close or we come to an end of this Twitter space, I want to understand from you what sort of remarks you would give to Ugandans who seem to be lost within joining the opposition, and also they're maybe not willing to join government, but they want to see better service. They see parties in the opposition in shambles, but also see government deprive them, possibly for many reasons, of services that they should be getting. Talk of health and the other services, talk of infrastructure. The people of Bulindo are crying day in, day out in regards to the roads that they do have. What particularly would be your address in regards to what or where they should hold their hope against? What is it that they should hold hope against?
To fix the problems of this country, people must recognize that it is parties which are vehicles of governance, as long as we're still running the constitution that we do have. So logically, it means that anybody who wants to fix the problems which are in our country now must ensure that there is a party that has got the capability to meet with those challenges and resolve them. And therefore, anybody who wants a resolution of the problems in the country must join a party, either direct or give it support. And two, for Ugandans to know that to join a party doesn't mean necessarily that you want to run for office. Absolutely not. You can join a party and offer your skills. The people who can offer the policy formulation, people who can help in marketing. There are those who can raise the resources. There are those who can do training, even when they have no intention of ever running as LC1 or LC2, LC3, 5, or even member of parliament. But you go in knowing that, if we don't build a vehicle that is capable of resolving the problems which affect the country, we are going to remain stuck. So I don't see how the problems can be resolved unless the parties themselves have got the capabilities to meet the challenges and resolve them. So to me, anybody who wants to save this country needs to look across the board, look at the party which they would want to join, which they have belief in or hope in, and increase the numbers of those who want to work together to solve the problems of the country. If there is no party yet that they see let them get other people who have the same thinking and form a party. So people will say, oh, but there are already many parties. Yes, but if you can't choose one which is available already, then the only option is form another. But ensure that you are all like-minded and that you build a significant number of you who want to take the country in a particular direction. I don't see how anybody will solve the problems of this country outside the party, because it's the parties which will be competing for power. And if the parties are messed up, the country will remain messed up. So I don't think it is responsible for any Ugandan who's conscious of the challenges we are meeting to sit on the fence and not do something. They need to do something. If one can't directly join the party, fund it. Put in your 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever party you choose. And then also ensure that you can influence them to account for the money that you put there. Because that's another thing which people need to understand. The manner in which, if we, for example, us in the end, we know that the manner in which we manage resources when we're outside power is going to be reflective of how we manage resources when we're in power. If you get money and you cannot use it responsibly and you cannot account for it, even when you're in power, you're not going to change suddenly and start managing money more responsibly. So it is also a training ground for people who want to see better governance. They need to work on the parties before they get into power. You know, people should not expect miracles. That if a party is not transparent in managing resources, that if it gets into power, that something miraculous will happen the night when they take power, and then it will be responsible, it will be transparent. You build those early enough. This is the period for building those skills within the parties. And therefore, the Ugandans who want to be part and parcel of radical transformation in this country need to focus on parties, join them or support them if you can't join them directly. Yes, Shamim.
Thank you very much, General. I'm not certain if I'm able to get you clearly on Twitter, but only for you to be sure that you are actively there and with speech or volume on Twitter. I thank you very much for being part of this Twitter space, but also it's important for those that still have questions. There's one who says that they have tried to get the card of the Alliance for National Transformation to get particular answers, but also I can be able to share the contacts as shared, those that they can be able to contact to be able to get the Alliance for National Transformation card, or even the information or the registration in that purple book first. I'll read twice the numbers. There is a 10704 874 994. Again, it is 0704 874 994. And the MTN goes as 078 296 1175. 078 296 1175. Those are the contacts that you're able to get through to get any information around the Alliance for National Transformation. Thank you very much, General Mugisha Muntu, and thank you very much for the listeners who have been on the Twitter spaces and those that have been on the different platforms where we have been live. Thank you very much for those 1,000 plus that have been live and listening to this conversation. We promise to bring you another conversation again to understand what the perspective of the different things look like in the country and how they can be managed differently. Well, thank you and have a good evening to yourselves.
Thank you, Shamim. Thank you, dear listeners.
Thank you, Shamim.
Hello.